Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's show comes one day after World Cancer Day. Tonight's discussion is going to focus on different interventions being done in Rwanda to combat cancer, looking at prevention, looking at treatment, and looking at awareness in general. We're going to tackle issues to do with stigma. We're going to hear personal experiences, and we're also going to look at new inroads that have been made in battling this disease, such as the launch of the recent Rwanda Cancer Center. And joining the discussion with us, we have Dr. Fidel Rubagumya, who is a clinical and radiation oncologist at the Rwanda Cancer Center located at Kanombe Military Hospital. Dr. Fidel, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you.
Great. The next guest we have here, we have with us Karen Buyingo, who's an entrepreneur, author, and cancer advocate. Karen, great to have you on The Square.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Great. My name is Dana Mpisi, host of The Square. As always, I'm joined by The Square's resident panelists. And I'll start with you, Charlie Haber. Great to have you on the show.
Same here, Dana. How are you?
As always, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
I need to apologize to our listeners that I'm not wearing Uzi today.
Yes, shame on you not wearing any made in Rwanda.
No, I do have some made in Rwanda.
Okay.
My shoes are made in Rwanda.
Okay, that's fair enough. Can we see your shoes? We're also joined by Brenna Namata, who is also a Square resident panelist. Brenna, great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Dana.
As always, before we start, and I'll start with you, Brenna.
No.
No? we usually have a midweek highlights, things that have caught our attention in the week. And today's Wednesday. It's been an interesting month so far, February. Actually, 2020 in general has just been very eventful. Charles, is there something that has caught your attention you'd like to share with our viewers?
Yes, of course. There's something in the news around the Minister of State in the Justice Ministry, Honorable Evode. Caught flat-footed.
Flat-footed.
Yeah. In my other life, I'm into property management. My business, I run a business that is involved in property management. Now, one of the key things that's extremely important in our line of business is the first impression that you'll get when you get into a building. Our company managed the Grand Pension Plaza for a number of years, and we used to struggle quite a bit with staff being courteous. And this is not unique to really the building, but it's something that's a bit general with private security companies. The training that they get, the exposure that they have, the limitations that they have, the amount of money that they are paid, sometimes can push the staff to certain limits.
Mm-hmm. The security staff?
The security staff. I do not want to take it away from the Honorable Minister's reaction, and maybe for purposes of our viewers, the Minister came out to apologize for having shoved a female security staff. Whether that was blown out of proportion or not is a story for a different day. But I was extremely surprised by two things. One is the humility with which the minister apologized and went out of his way to look for the staff. And you know, the way the whole aftermath, for lack of a better word, was handled was extremely humbling. For him to swallow humble pie and say I am sorry and come out in the media for that's extremely humbling. But the second thing,
extremely humbling for who?
For who? For us, people
for the
who
woman,
have a humane side.
No, for the security guard who was shot.
Well, again, at the same time, the security guard is only human. She appeared in the public. I mean, naysayers will be out there to say it was stage managed or however it was done, you know. But if I'm to look at things with a very, very innocent mind, I think it was well handled. But the second thing, and I think I want to throw a spanner in the works, I was one of the people who are extremely skeptical the day security guards were withdrawn from our ministers. Mm-hmm. Most likely, if the Honorable Minister was moving with his personal guard, the reaction would have been different, or it would not have been necessary. A conversation for another day.
Another day,
but,
and Charlie,
it's definitely a burning issue.
And Charlie, I'm very glad you are not a minister in this country.
Thank you.
If those are your
Thank you for
sentiments,
saying that.
I'm very glad you're not a minister in this country. Brenda, very quickly, midweek highlights. Please not echo that. That's a burning issues edition. Yeah.
I will not respond to that. But this week has really been, it's gone. We've had on both sides. One, today morning we woke up to the news around Qatar, Rwanda.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exciting. The drones forum that is happening, the launch of the cancer. So, and this is just Feb.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what awaits for the rest of the year. So for me, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully it will be better than January. I feel like January was just rough.
Well, on the other side, you have the weather that is creating, havoc, and I hope that the authorities in charge will continue to do more for the vulnerable, the ones that live in the high-risk zones.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we thank you very much for tuning in to our viewers and to our guests. Thank you for joining us, and to our panelists as well. And I'd just like to start by talking about just in general, to start with the Rwanda Cancer Center, and this question is to you, Dr. Rubagumya. And, Rwanda observed the World Cancer Day by unveiling this new Rwanda Cancer Center. And this radiotherapy center is also said to be the most advanced of its kind in Eastern Africa, at least, the sort of treatment that and diagnosis that it offers. If you can just tell us more about the facility to kick off the conversation, and what this means for thousands of cancer patients in Rwanda.
And the region.
And the region, yes, and the region.
So thank you so much for the invitation. As you said, yesterday was the World Cancer Day, which is usually celebrated on 4th of Feb every year. And Rwanda was, of course, as part of the global community that fight cancer, we were part of other people that were celebrating this day. And for us, it was a big day because, as you said, we were launching officially our cancer center. It's called Rwanda Cancer Center. Right now, the talk of the town is that we are launching the radiotherapy center, but actually we are launching a cancer center, which means this is a center where a patient with cancer diagnosis or suspicion of cancer is going to be coming and get a diagnosis, get treated, and even follow up after treatment. So right now there are two radiotherapy machines. Radiotherapy, if I may explain a little bit, is a modality of treatment where we treat cancer using X-rays. For those who remember their physics, X-rays are part of the wavelength, but I'm not going into the details of technicalities of this. So we use that to treat cancer. If there is a particular tumor on any site of the body, we target that tumor using the X-rays. So the machines we have, as you say, they're one of the best technique that we use, called VMAT. We are probably the second in the region. The other technique that is the same is found in Kenya, in one of the center in Kenya. And over the past years, the radiotherapy world has been growing from where when you're treating cancer, you treat the tumor, but again, you also include other normal tissues that are close to the tumor or to the cancer, meaning that you're probably going to achieve the target that you want to treat the cancer with the dose that you want, but you're also going to kill the normal cells that are close to the tumor. But the technique we have is you look at the shape of the tumor, you tell your machine with the technology that we have that I want you to go and treat only the tumor and spare the
surrounding
normal
healthy cells.
Exactly. So that limits the toxicities that we usually see with the older techniques. So this is the technique. If you go to US or Europe, these are developed countries we're talking about, you'll be treated with the same technique. So having a cancer center that has all these advanced technique is a huge benefit to our population. For, of course, those that are unfortunate to be diagnosed with cancer. And it's going to reduce a lot of issues that we've been seeing in the past. This includes when a patient in the past was diagnosed with cancer, treatment was not available in the country. I'm talking about 10 years ago, when one of the cancer center, Butaro Cancer Center, was not yet there. People were even referred abroad to get diagnosed of things that we didn't know what is going on. But over the past 10 years, I would say that the health sector has developed in terms of cancer management. We have a capacity to diagnose, we have the capacity to treat, and we have the capacity to follow up patients. Cancer treatment is a multidisciplinary approach. Cancer is treated by chemotherapy, which are drugs that we put through the veins, treated by surgery, treated by radiation. And it can be either one of the three or a combination of the three. So all these now are in the country. So this is a huge benefit to the country and to the region, as I said. The center has been functioning for a year now, and we have treated...
since March
last year,
2019.
2019.
Yes.
And we've treated about 315, but we have a big number of patients that come from the neighboring countries. So we're talking about Burundi that has no machine, has no radiotherapy machine. And we're talking about the large part of Eastern Congo that has no any cancer treatment. Yes. So I've seen many patients coming from those countries. But again, Rwanda being a small country and our neighboring countries being large, most of these cancer treatment modalities are found in their capital cities. Okay. So that means a patient who is in Balada or Kabare will prefer to come to Rwanda rather than going to Kampala, where the machine is. Or a patient who is close to Akagera in Tanzania is not going to travel long distance to Dar es Salaam, where the machine is, or other treatments. So we're talking about a machine that is going to be not only beneficial to Rwandese, but other people in the region.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And just very quickly before I move to, also so we can hear from Karen, apparently 57% of these 350 patients that you mentioned over the last year were actually Rwandans covered by Mutuelle de Santé, by our national health insurance scheme, 57%. So it's actually accessible to Rwandans in general, because, you know, there was this idea, or, you know, that's the concept that this Rwanda Center, it's only, you know, if you can afford to, if it's specific to a certain category of people. But it was interesting to know that 57% of the treatments in the last year of Rwandans were people under Mutuelle de Santé.
I think actually the percentage is higher than 57 because, as you said, most of our patients actually are covered by Mutuelle. And over the past year that have been in operation, these are mostly our patients. And it's really a huge burden of our patient because radiotherapy is really expensive. It's, I would say, on average, patient who would go for 25 sessions, let's say with the breast cancer, pays around between 1.5 and 2 million Rwandan francs if uninsured. That is someone who is
uninsured.
Yes, but with someone who has, of course, the Mutuelle de Santé is only going to pay 10% of that, which is also not really a small amount of money for a normal, you know, Rwandese from our village. So, but the government came in and said this is a, you know, a expensive treatment. We're going to chip in and pay the 90%. But also for people who are not able to afford the 10%, we're not going to chase away the Rwandese that need treatment, and we have it. While they were, you know, dying in the villages when this was not in Rwanda.
Yes. Karen, Charles and Brenna, if you'll allow me to also move to Karen before we open it up to the resident panelists. So thank you very much for joining us, Karen Bujingo. I am yet to read your book, but I've attended a couple of your talks, and I'm very happy to have you here on the Square. So in 2012, at the age of 19, Karen, you were diagnosed with stage 4 Burkitt lymphoma, if I'm not mistaken. And apparently this is a cancer recognized as the fastest, it's a fast-growing tumor. And you went on to fight it. You wrote a book called My Name is Life, and you're now a successful entrepreneur running your own business. And you're soon getting married. So congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. And if you could just tell us more about your story, and also to our viewers listening, those battling cancer or just those in general who are interested in hearing a story, tell us about your story, and also what inspired you to overcome this disease, to be the young woman that you are today.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. As you said, I was diagnosed at the age of 19, and unfortunately, I was diagnosed in a foreign country, away from friends and family. So that was hard to deal with, especially that I didn't have anyone else to talk to about this, and also the fact that I didn't know anyone else who had survived or a real life person. So I had to take it all in by myself and process it. So that was the end of 2012, and I started treatment, and I was in India for about 2 months, trying to...
Alone?
With an aunt.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were just the two of us for 2 months in India, and it was hard to get around, but we managed. And the reason I was in India for 2 months is because we didn't. So after treatment, I had to stay in India for 3 more weeks in order to see my reaction towards the medication that I was taking, because we weren't guaranteed any follow-ups here in Rwanda. So that was hard on me emotionally, as well as my aunt who was taking care of me, because I was in a very bad shape. I was actually in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so how my story started, I started with a hip pain. So that hip pain later on drove me to start actually being driven in a wheelchair, because I came from crutches, and so I moved. By the time I was diagnosed, I was already in a wheelchair. Wow. So from there, taking care of me in a wheelchair, and going to the hospital every day, and also it wasn't cheap because I was staying in an apartment, so there are costs and all this. And after 2 months, I came back to Rwanda. I started chemotherapy. I continued chemotherapy rather at King Faisal, and about 6 months I had to return for a checkup, and I ran all the tests that I'd run before, and I was declared cancer-free in July 2013, and from there life had moved on. Friends, school, life, everybody had moved on. So in that state of feeling like, oh, it looks like everybody moved on and I kind of have to start my life from fresh, I came up with a short, like a blog kind of thing to write about my story, but it wasn't the full story. So I was just writing a few inspirational things here and there. I mean, because I was pretty verbal about my experience, my friends, everybody knew about my situation. So about 3 to 2 years in, I spoke to some family members, especially my uncle. He encouraged me to write a full story. So I started writing, and in the writing process, because I actually went through counseling in order to start writing my book. So writing my book was also part of the counseling sessions. So I kept going because it was, writing about it brought a lot of healing and purpose, because you're like, if I went through this, I hope it helps someone else. So that also motivated me to write this story. And from the feedback I get from the story and everybody who's been encouraged, I have no single regret of sharing my story or putting my life out there as some people view it. But yeah.
What message would you give to people, young people who are diagnosed as young as you, at the age of 19, battling cancer?
Yeah. So the theme of basically the theme around my book and me sharing my story is not about trying to get petty from for people to feel bad or to feel like, oh, this girl, she went through this, but in order to put some hope in people. Because I always tell people, for me it might have been cancer, but for someone else it might be something else, a loss of a loved one, or people go through different things. So if I could find hope in whatever situation I was with, battling cancer, my message would be to be positive and to be encouraged by the situation, and also to know that the situation is shaping you for the future. Because even in my career as an entrepreneur or anything I do, I think I was shaped by the experiences I went through. I mean, by the time I was 22, I was already thinking like an adult. I was very open-minded. I think cancer really changed me, and so the experiences are rough, but I feel like the lessons that come out of the experiences are worth it, if I can say it. Yeah.
It's powerful. Yeah. Bernard Charles, is there something you'd like to ask a panel?
Well, some of these stories, you really can't find the right kind of conversations to have around them. But maybe just out of curiosity and to Daktari, what's the difference between what you guys are going to do in Kanombe and what the guys in Butaro are doing? Yes.
Thank you. There's no difference. I would say that we're going to be complementing each other. Butaro has, over the past, they started in 2012, and they've been giving chemotherapy, which is one of the modalities of cancer care. And some of the investigations, they were not doing it. They would send patient to Kigali and then get the investigation and go back to Butaro. The Kanombe is coming in with radiotherapy, but in the future we're planning to be the comprehensive cancer center. As I said, where you come in and you don't have to move out of the hospital. I don't want to call it one-stop center, but it is as one-stop hospital where you come in and get diagnosed, get treated, and go out. So we're complementing each other right now, and I think this is going to continue, because you can't ask a patient who is coming from Burera to come to Kigali to get chemotherapy when Butaro has chemotherapy. So we are complementing each other in a way that what they provide, that we provide, they can continue to provide it in Butaro, providing for people that are close to them, but also things that they can't provide. Like radiotherapy is not going to be soon launched in another city. So
extremely expensive.
Very expensive. So, and there are other lots of needs, especially in the healthcare sector. So it's complementary to each other, I would say. Probably commenting a little bit on what Karen said, that all these centers we are launching in the country, health centers, especially for cancer care, are really reducing a lot of burdens that have been on patients. She talked about, delays in diagnosis. Going to India with auntie, this is associated with the cost of care. Cost of care, but also the emotional cost. When you're battling cancer, it's one thing, but also you don't have the support of your family, your friends close to you. You're in India alone or with one person. There's a lot of emotional cost that it goes with that. So these centers coming in with the new one that we've just launched yesterday are going to come in and reduce all the burden that I've just talked about. Yeah.
Brenna?
Just to congratulate the team again. I think it's state of the art, and most of you have spent sleepless nights to actually get it running. So well done to your team. Given what we're seeing with numbers, cases continuing to rise, and perhaps because now we have better diagnosis, how are you prepared in terms of dealing with these increasing numbers? And I'm asking that because if you look at the military hospital, over time, it has built a reputation as one that is quite efficient, to the level where at the moment it's overwhelmed. Most people prefer to go to the military hospital, So now you also have the cancer center at the military hospital. How are you planning to deal with this?
The good thing is these things don't happen, just abruptly. These are plannings that government put in place. The center just launched yesterday. We've been treating patients over there, as I said. When the center, so my colleague was in Rwanda in 2013, and there was no cancer treatment by that time in Kigali, and specifically in the Rwanda Military Hospital. And he started building, the program. And by that time, we also went for training. So right now, we have 5 clinical oncologists who are people that deal with, providing chemotherapy, but also treating patients with radiation. Those are 5 right now. The other 5 that are in training right now that we expect in actually this year, next year, and the following year, we're going to be having new specialists coming in. So that is in terms of personnel, but also, as I said, because cancer care is multidisciplinary, we need surgeons, we need pathologists who are people that diagnose cancer, we need psychologists. There's a lot of mental exhaustion that goes on when these patients are getting treated and even after treatment. So all these people that are needed in cancer care are being trained on a different scale, that when they come, they're going to be helping us to deal with the problem. But in terms of infrastructure, I would say that right now the machines are enough right now, but as the need go increasing, as I said, that we might be serving not only Rwanda but the region, we're going to be adding more infrastructure that are needed.
Dana, if I may, and
Yes.
I'm glad the doctor is talking about the ecosystem, and that's particularly where I have an issue with, and I'll talk about nursing and the care that a patient gets, whether it's from an administrative perspective or a medical perspective. If you're to take it slightly away from cancer and keep it medically in general, the administrative and the nursing bit, and it is more painful with cancer, I imagine, Karen, because the patients even have less hope of actually making it. So if the administrative side and the nursing side is not well catered for, that even makes the patient lose more hope. So my specific concern, Daktari, is what is being done on that front. Yes.
Yeah. It's a great question, and actually a week or 2 weeks ago I tweeted about this. Even us on the medical side, I'll give you an example, and that's what I tweeted at that time. You are in the clinic, you're supposed to be seeing, let's say, 30 people per day. All these people are coming at the same time. They come early in the morning at 7. So someone who came at 7 and was number 1 is going to wait. Number 30 who came at the same time is going to wait for all the people that came to be treated. Yet he or she came early in the morning. Why do they delay? There's other factors, as you said, cashier, the other, papers to fill and all.
But I think the most obvious is the whole doctor to patient ratio. We just don't have enough oncologists, enough doctors.
I beg to disagree, Diana.
I agree with you also.
Okay, so that's
because
that's not it.
He's given us the numbers. There are 5 at the moment. There are other more in training. Assume Rwanda is extremely blessed and we can produce 5 oncologists every year. That means we have 5 today. Next year, in 3 years, we'll only have 15 for tens of millions of people. We'll never narrow that gap. But on nursing side, and I think that's where Daktari was going, that the person was coming at 7, and he has, what's the average time you spend on a patient? Maybe 30 minutes? Yes. 30 times 30 is 900. So you have all those hours until you see the last one. What happens within that period? Yes.
So that's where, as I agree with you, that not only doctor side has to be worked on, or the nursing side, but also the administrative side has to be worked on. How can I book appointment? And I say I'm going to see the doctor at 7:30, and I go there, I see the doctor at 7:30. Can I pay online? Can I do all the other administrative papers not really coming to the hospital and have to sit all those hours. And, we are in the world that is moving so fast. Wasting an hour or two just seated waiting for a doctor is not really something that we should be doing right now. So I think I agree with you that we have to look at that. I'm just a technician, if I may, but the people that are at the policy level, be it at the hospital level or at the health sector level, I think we should look into that.
I want to ask another question, just to read a few figures on cancer awareness, and you're an advocate, so you're in this field, as well as you, Dr. Fidel. These are figures that the Rwanda Biomedical Center released for 2018 that stated that an estimated 10,704 new cancer cases was seen last year, with around 4,520 males and 6,184 females. So this looks like women are obviously more prone to cancer, cervical, breast, and what have you. So these are numbers from 2018. If you can just share with us, Karen and Dr. Fidel, what interventions exist in terms of cancer awareness? It's one thing to diagnose it and get it, but in terms of prevention and awareness of cancer-causing, lifestyles, foods and behaviors, that sort of thing. What interventions exist in Rwanda?
Yeah.
Do you want to? Okay.
All right. If I may, actually the figures that you're talking about are figures that are reported by the WHO.
Yes,
and these are actually estimates, not the actual figures. But the reason why we go, with the numbers that WHO give us is because in the past we didn't have what we call cancer registry, where we register our cancers diagnosed per year. But the government of Rwanda just a few months ago, actually today we launched the National Cancer Control Plan, which is a document that gives you a detailed plan for cancer care in the country, or let's say cancer control in the country. And one of the parts of the document talks about the cancer registry. And they did registration of cancers from 2007 up to 2018. And over the past 5 years, we have been registering 3,000 cancer cases per year.
In Rwanda?
In Rwanda, 3,000. But the WHO reports 10,000, which means if we go by the estimates, there are other 7,000 patients that we are not seeing at the hospital. Patients who die because of cancer, but they don't know whether it's cancer or not. So those are the numbers. As we go forward, registering our cancer and also raising awareness that I'm going to be talking about, I think we're going to be looking at a bigger number than we have right now. So what are we doing, or what is the government doing? A disclaimer is that I'm not representing the government here, but because I know the numbers, I will probably share with the viewers. There are a lot of efforts that are being done right now. For example, the Car-Free Day, you know that the things that we talk about, cervical cancer, breast cancer, being talked about in those campaigns. But there are other efforts that you all know, HPV vaccination for young girls.
And Rwanda has a 93% coverage?
93%, the first actually in the world.
In the world,
And
HPV stands for?
Human papilloma virus. It's a nasty virus that is linked to cervical. Right now, the numbers are high as a cervical cancer. But if you go in the West, HPV, human papilloma virus, is actually linked to anal cancer because of the sexual behavior.
So from HPV being something that affected women, specifically cervical cancer, due to various sexual behaviors, it is now an oral cancer.
Because of sexual behaviors that are in the West, and I'm afraid that is coming to our countries.
So men can get it too?
Definitely.
Orally?
The numbers are actually high in men in the West world. So there are different other awareness activities and preventive measures. As I said, the Car-Free Days, we tell people to do physical exercises, which are the factors that we know that reduce cancer. But also, we want to tell people to also work on the diet. If you go by the time of our grandparents and great-parents, the kind of food that we're eating is different from what we're eating. We are opening KFC. I've been seeing...
oh, is it on the market already?
That's soon.
Not yet. When is it going? A lot of people have been calling me.
We're looking forward.
Oh, no, please. But so those food, they have chemicals that we call carcinogens.
Yes.
These carcinogens are cancer-causing chemicals. So the more you consume, the more you get a risk of having different types of cancer. Alcohol abuse. Not consumption, abuse, and also tobacco smoking. All those things, the government are putting up campaigns to reduce that. Like tobacco, we are talking about the tobacco law that is already enacted. So I think there are many fronts that the government is working on, and I think also, we are doing this.
Yes,
this is part of awareness.
Yes.
His Excellency, the President, being at the launch yesterday was a big honor for us in the community of cancer. So there are a lot of other things that are being done to raise awareness.
Karen, would you like to talk about awareness and maybe even share with us your work in general?
Yeah, so I get a lot of this question when I'm talking about my story. I get questions of people asking me, did you used to eat the wrong things? How was your diet before? And all I can say was I was 19. So really, the only thing I am guilty of is I didn't do my medical checkup. So for me to just shoot at stage 4, there has been something that was building up. So because we weren't raised in the culture of getting a medical checkup, just randomly going to the hospital for a general checkup, because just like any other Rwandan family, we only go to the hospital when we're sick.
Like seriously sick.
Exactly, not even a minor headache. You have to be seriously sick. So what I always tell people is make it a casual thing to just go for a checkup. And also, especially for, I think Fidel would have elaborated this more, but if you have like cancer, like breast cancer or like genetic cancers in the family, like I always encourage people to go and check if you have a chance of getting it in the future. So, so part of the cancer awareness I do, first was my book, obviously, and sharing my story as detailed as possible, and to make sure I am as open and transparent so that people can really understand the journey of being a cancer patient, and as well as doing talks. And earlier we were another talk with Fidel. I was sharing my story as well. So I try to do as many talks as possible to different groups of people. Like today I was talking to medical doctors and other people in the medical field, and as well I talk to people who are like me, who have nothing attaching them to the medical field. And so any opportunity I have to talk about my experience, because there's no better person to share something than someone who's been through it. So any opportunity I get to talk about it, especially even in my social media, I have people asking me for advice on how to treat their loved ones who are going through cancer.
So like counseling as well?
Yes. Before I used to get a lot of medical questions, and Fidel remembers this because I used to forward them to him. So I'm like, this one sounds like a doctor's question. But over the years, I get more personal messages on, I have an aunt, she's she's lost hope, could you talk to her, could you share her a bit of your story? And so I'm always glad to do that. And also I have people asking me permission, can I share your story to my aunt? I'm like, I have a whole book, of course you can. I'm literally an open book. So yeah, I try to talk. That is the biggest advocacy on my side that I try to do, is talk about my story to on larger platforms.
Yeah. And just very quickly, I want us to just, before we go to the tweets, we have very, very many tweets because I think this touches a lot of viewers, cancer survivors, people going through cancer, people who've lost their loved ones to cancer. But I wanted to talk about stigma. And we all know that stigma actually plays a huge role in preventing access to treatment. You know, you've heard stories. I was reading Dr. Fidel about some story you were giving about a woman who refused to go check her breast for breast cancer, thinking the husband would leave her. By the time she went, first of all, the husband had already left, but at that time she went, it was too late. So I was kind of surprised. I've heard about, you know, stigma regarding HIV and AIDS. I didn't think it would be also that, you know, prevalent when it comes to cancer. So what are your thoughts, just very quickly before you go to a social feed, regarding how do Rwandan communities, Rwandan society deal with stigma when it comes to cancer? Do you want to start, Karen?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've also faced some stigma in my own personal life, where some people don't believe. I think I even have family members who check with me frequently, like, are you sure you're okay? When is the last time you saw a doctor? So first of all, there's that stigma of thinking that cancer cannot completely go away. So I had to first face that with people around, or people think you're still on some kind of medication that are pushing you. So there's that stigma, and also the stigma of people thinking that maybe you can contaminate some. So there was also that, and while I was also going through treatment, I also had the stigma of people who actually believed I was gonna pass. I actually had some family members who'd come to see me more of like to say goodbye, you know. So that kind of stigma is still going on, no matter how you're gonna talk about survivorship. But someone in my position who survived, I try as much as to break the stigma by answering to such questions, because sometimes in talks like these we have Q&As. I mean, the talk I had earlier, we had like some Q&As of people who want to ask these, and some people ask very stigmatized questions, but that is where now you come in and you try and clear the air. So the only way I, as a non-medical profession, try to break the stigma is sharing my story and also being a living proof to break the stigmas. Yeah.
Fantastic. Dr. Vidal, very quickly on stigma.
I think, I mean, as we medical personnel would probably also be in position to talk about stigma and actually help the patient. I think the most people that are in the better position are the cancer survivors. Because as you said, people are saying cancer is a death sentence. They still consider cancer as a death sentence. And I want to say it on TV that cancer is not a death sentence. If you are diagnosed at an early stage, cancer is cured. But I want to also say cancer is not one disease. There are hundreds of diseases. We call them cancer, but there are hundreds of diseases, because the cancer that attacks the breast is different from the cancer that attacks your stomach or any other body, and the behavior is different. Even the cancer in the breast alone is different from one person to another. So cancer is cured. If it is diagnosed at an early stage, we cure cancer. So people should not consider it as a death sentence, and that's why probably they, associate it, with all this kind of stigma. As you said, the story that I shared in one of my articles, there are many people who come to us and say, you know what, my husband has left me because you have treated my breast cancer by removing the breast. So he doesn't want to look at me when I don't have one of my breasts. So, the husband leave the wives, or, people are no longer touching me or using the utensils that I've been using. All this. So I think if we get more survivors coming out, as Karen, as other people that we have in the community coming up and saying, you know what, cancer can be cured, and here we are, people are going to stop the stigmatization.
I'd like us to go to a tweet of Charles.
I just wanted to, just before I lose this, and Karen said something that got me thinking around awareness. You see, in the world today, we're exposed to so much radioactivity and
microwaving food.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I ask myself, and I know Diana might take a bit of bone of contention with me on this. You know, we are exposed to a lot of danger, and food aside, talk about our gadgets. We have our smartphones, and we are now going flat out with Connect Rwanda, where we can give quite a number of examples. You know, I'm happy that the police today, when you will have, it's a traffic offense for you to have emissions of diesel that pollute the air. It's a traffic offense. So my specific concern is how we are working with the entire ecosystem to ensure that all the causes that are preventable, at least there's a stopgap somewhere. If it is food, how are we working with the National Bureau of Standards to ensure that it's the right products are ending up on our tables? If it is communication gadgets, if it's all these cameras around us that we have pointing their rays, red rays at us, if it is these PowerPoint presentations that use laser, whatever, if it is these breathalyzers that we are subjected to, if it is, you know, if it is the ACs that we are in the offices or in the cars being exposed to, to what extent are we ensuring that we are as organic as we should be? Yes.
You know, I have tried so much not to ask him any questions because he's a medical doctor. He's not a public official. You know, I wish we had someone from the Ministry of Health on the panel. It would be more interesting.
I think we can do that for part 2.
Yeah, I think we need a part 2 because asking him such questions around awareness, honestly,
and ecosystem,
in his office.
But it's good food for thought.
But the question is not necessarily intended to Daktari to Karen. It's kind of rhetoric to has somebody thought about the entire ecosystem? Because we are all affected in one way or another. We are all exposed in one another. We just might be lucky that, you know, today it's Karen and tomorrow it may be me.
No, but
to what's the extent to which, we and the bigger concern is actually awareness, because do we actually know the dangers of all these gadgets and whatever?
Even just knowing cancer-causing agents to do with diet.
Yes.
This is citros, Fantas that people keep on drinking. Like small things in terms we can start with just diet. Awareness of cancer-causing.
Awareness is the biggest issue. Yes.
But also, I feel that when it comes to diagnosis, there's no magic bullet because you really need a good doctor to be able to actually say, look, when I look at your blood count, you need a follow-up. Most of the time, you'll go and do your checkup, and you know, they will say you're fine. Or infection, and then
you progress to stage 4.
Yes. So awareness is key, but I think diagnosis, and this is why I really need the Minister of Health here to tell us, the linkage, because the cancer center, for it to be effective, we have to ensure that at the referrals, the national referrals are working properly.
I think we need to talk, part 2, we definitely need to do a deep dive into infrastructure regarding cancer prevention, awareness and treatment in Rwanda. I would like us to just go very quickly to our tweets for today. And we're going to rush through them because there are a couple of tweets. And the first is from MM, who says, I want to listen to how cancer survivors take care of their mental health during treatment and after beating cancer. Thank you. So I think, Karen, you answered that regarding mental health, staying positive, having a support system, not losing hope, and so forth and so on. The next tweet we have is from a person called Laurent, who says that kudos to a government which banned asbestos sheets in buildings as carcinogens elements. Skin creams with carcinogenic potential, mukorogo, which is bleach, and which takes another step today by building a hospital for cancer care. So, Charles, maybe that, at least we're trying to get rid of these cancer-causing agents within our ecosystem,
steps in the right direction,
as you mentioned. And this is from Edmund Kajire, who says that, and he has 2 tweets, which we'll read. He says, as a cancer survivor, it was pretty emotional for me to see Dr. Rubagumya and Dr. Mugenzi explaining to President Kagame what Rwanda's cancer center will be able to do. Imagine having the best oncologists with no facilities or equipment. RCC will be a game changer. And then his next tweet, just below, says that the biggest challenge remains on early diagnosis. I think this is what we've been all saying. And I know that Edmund is a cancer survivor as well. And he says, in India, doctors told me that most cancers are curable as long as they're diagnosed early. Unfortunately, most of the cases that got from Rwanda and Africa in general came in late. What are we going to do to solve this? These are tweets that we had ahead of the show, and this is really based on. I think you've answered them. Check yourself regularly. Diagnosis is very key, but also just early diagnosis is key. It's not saying that when you get cancer you're going to die. Which is what you said. And then he also says, regarding the number of oncologists, the number is still small. Today I do my follow-up tests with internal medicine doctors, but normally it should be an oncologist. Can Rwanda Health take away administrative responsibilities and keep them strictly on treating patients? Charles, what do you have to say to this before we go to our next tweet?
No brainer, really. I was told of a joke. Yeah. I don't know how true this is.
Yes.
One of our leading medical practitioners was sent on foreign mission as an ambassador.
Yeah.
And when his term of office ended and he was called back home, that country wanted to retain him to continue to do medical practice in that country. And apparently, story goes that country thought that Rwanda has so many doctors that we have extra to put into foreign service. Yeah. So I think there's an issue of appropriate allocation of our resources. Maybe remuneration, maybe competing priorities for
and we've talked about this
the government
several
of Rwanda.
times on the square.
I cannot blame the government of Rwanda at all in this because when you look at the brains that we have and how we need to deploy those brains in the different sectors that we have, you never want to be in the shoes of the appointing authority.
True.
Yes.
We have a couple of more tweets, and this one is an interesting tweet, and this is from Eunice, who says, my mom listening to Karen Bujingo's story on the square, and she's like, asking, when is your wedding? And she says, this month. And the mom gets all emotional, and she says, it's by God's grace. And she says, Karen Bujingo, God did you good. We praise his name. Amen. Amen to that. Amen to that. And our last tweet for today, I think we have a last tweet for today, just very quickly, from Abel, who says that, I am humbled, Kabisa. I lost 3 relatives all due to leukemia, Papa 1995, Mama 2001, and our younger sister in 2011. So I understand the struggle one has to go through with cancer issues. Thank you very much. Abdi El Hamid. And we've come to the end of the show, and Charles?
Yes. I probably want to challenge Daktari.
But very briefly.
Yes. Very briefly. I think, in line with corporate social responsibility, I know you have the Association of Medical Practitioners. You also have a body of sports medicine, that is medical practitioners who are in the sports field. You have others who are in the corporate world. I want to challenge you guys to do a little bit more around awareness. Awareness, lifestyle, how we look after ourselves, what we do, what we drink, our lifestyle in general. I think if a lot more deliberate effort is done in that field, we can be able to save more lives.
Sure.
I believe awareness is really where the crux of the matter is. And
Very, very quickly, if you can give closing remarks in 2 sentences regarding cancer and the future of treatment and care in this country.
Yes.
Very briefly, please.
I just want the viewers to not, by the end of this show, think that everything that is around them is causing cancer.
Okay. I love that. You don't want to be an alarmist.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. Bernard, very briefly.
I just feel that we need the Ministry of Health here.
Absolutely. I hope the Ministry of Health is watching, so that when we invite them to talk about cancer, especially the infrastructure, they will honor our invitation. Karen, last words, closing remarks?
my closing remarks would be to encourage the Rwandan people, as well as other people watching the show, that cancer is everyone's problem and everyone's concern. So being an advocate for cancer, you necessarily don't have to be a survivor or in the medical field. You just have to feel like it's something that you should also contribute to. Yeah, that's my...
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Fidel. Thank you, Karen. Shirley, Barna, always a pleasure to have you on the square. To our viewers, thank you very much for watching. Please keep the conversation going, and thank you for your comments using #TheSquareRW. To our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you very much as always. And have a good evening. See you next week. Thank you.